And you can feel free to talk or whatever.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start with some easy stuff like this. So basically, we can come in here like this, and we can say, you can start to see all these little anchor points. I'm just using my wet arrow tool,
Okay.
and we can just come in here and we can just say, we don't need any of these. And you can start to just kind of clean them up like that. Maybe you can get rid of this one. Kind of pull this out. If you use your shape builder tool, or not shape builder tool, your Shift C, you can kind of do a curve there. But just that looks just way more smooth, right? So we can do that on this other side too. We'll come in like this. And let's say that we want this to kind of come out and come back in and then come out again.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we can kind of say, let's add an anchor point here. We'll pull this out. Okay, and then I want that to kind of flow through this. So I'm going to Shift C, click and drag. Just kind of bend that just a little bit so it kind of comes in. A little bit like this. We'll just kind of adjust these. Pull this up. Okay, and then I want this curve to kind of pull through a lot more, so I'm just going to kind of pull that out. Okay, and I don't like this little wave, and so I can adjust that. I can pull this in. And basically just making these little minor adjustments. But with a lot fewer of the anchor points that we had before. And the smaller number of anchor points you have, the smoother your curves are going to be. So this one just has one on either end. And this one has 4 on this line here, right? And so we can do the same thing here. We can just come in and just take subtract anchor point tool, and just kind of subtract them all, and you kind of just pull that curve out. Okay, and so that'll smooth that out. And the other thing is on this hair.
Strokes.
Yeah. So let's come in and we'll just delete all these strokes. We'll just kind of start from scratch here. Okay, another thing that you can try sometimes, this sometimes works, is you can go to Object Path Simplify. And if you click Preview, sometimes that'll show you, so it'll show original here. You can see that there were 2 curves right there, or 2 anchor points here, and they just kind of got rid of those.
Okay.
But it also got rid of all this, and we didn't want to get rid of that. So sometimes it's too much, sometimes it's too little, and so it can work or not work, and it kind of depends. But I think I can fix this really fast as we go. Boom, boom, and boom. And we'll pull this out like that.
So you just took out the anchor points and then pulled it out.
Right. Just delete those anchor points with the subtract anchor point tool.
Okay.
And then just smooth that out there. Okay. Now this I'm just going to get rid of. Okay. So back here, what if we just did something like this? Okay. Already we've got some depth. We see that this is kind of inside. We can even take this and say, we can kind of exaggerate that kind of cut a little bit by just pulling that up, and that'll kind of just do that. See how I just did that? Okay, so now if we want to kind of define this, if we look at, let's look up some comic book illustration here. So we'll go to illustration. Okay, so one way to do hair, lots of tiny little lines. Notice that they kind of flow together. You can get a little bit of shading or whatever. It's kind of busy. But let's just kind of scroll through and see if we can find some different hair here. So this is, notice we have a shape, solid shape, and then we have a couple things that come in and give us like the idea of highlights.
Okay.
Okay, we can keep going. Same concept here. The highlights are a little bit more detailed, and we have 3 values. You've got the shadow, the midtone, and the highlight here. You've got basically these kind of rows of highlights. Okay, and you can kind of see that. You can kind of see that in the actual image, right? We've got kind of a row of highlights, a row of shadows, and then you can exaggerate that for illustrations and things. Let me see if I can find one that's just super obvious. This is another good example. Instead of having all the details, we just have kind of chunks of hair, just big shapes.
Because I tried to do a braid, but it just didn't look good either.
Right, yeah, and braids can be super complicated because it's just so many different patterns and whatnot. But something like this, okay, just focus on the hair. We basically just have one big giant shape, okay? It's got some wisps and things coming off of it. But then there's just kind of another shape that's cut into it that gives you just the suggestion of highlights. Okay, but it's a single shape and you kind of come in. And so if we were to take something like this, let's use like this as just a kind of an example. Oops, gotta zoom out here. Come back. We'll paste that in here. That's really big. Okay, so we'll move this off to the side. Okay, and I really only need the hair. I don't know why it gave me the whole thing. We'll just kind of mask this out. Select that and select this and Command 7. Which one? This one here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this one's gonna be a little bit more complicated.
Okay.
But still totally doable. Just take a lot more time. So we can kind of come in and I'll post this one over here. Okay, but you're still seeing shapes and then lines or blocks of color in between those shapes. And this is painted, and so it's a little bit different than like a vector graphic. But let's see, we'll just keep going here. Something like this, even when you look at the fur, you can kind of see that it's like indicating with these little short tapering lines that there's hair there, but we can actually see like every. Okay, so now we're not going to copy any of these in particular. We're just going to just kind of look at them and see if we can kind of figure out how to kind of apply what they've done, right?
Okay.
And so if we zoom in here, we're looking at having maybe, we can kind of just rough this out real fast. A highlight source, it looks like your light source is coming from the right. Okay, so if it's coming from the right, I might have like some highlights around this area, okay, and I might have some highlights like maybe that are coming around this side, okay, so we can make those, let's just mark those like bright yellow real quick so we can just kind of see. And then if this is going to wrap around and we've got a part here, then this plane here is going to face away from the light. This faces towards it. Does that make sense? It kind of curves. Because it's basically going to come down. If we were to really do this the way that we should, we can come in and we can add an anchor point here. And we'll raise this up like that. And then we'll kind of go like that. So there's going to be, this is going to face away from the light. Okay? So I can come in here and I can say, there's probably right around here going to be like a shadow. So we'll grab this and we'll make our shadows for this be red. Okay, and then there's going to be probably another highlight, like another highlight in, ooh, that's too big. Like along this ridge. Maybe that's all we need. Okay, and so let's just take all these, okay, and we'll like turn them way down just so we get an idea of where they should be. Because we're not going to actually use those anymore. We'll just enough to say, okay, there they are. And then we'll just lock them. Object. Oh, I can never remember what it is. I just pressed Command 2. Object lock selection. Okay, now I can't touch those. We can unlock them later. Okay, but I can come in here and I can say, I'm just going to make like a jaggy shape to kind of give us the idea of lines. And we could do that a number of ways, right? We can do it like this way, where it's a big chunk with some jags. Okay, we can do it this way, where it's like a shape that's kind of in there with some lines. We can do it this way, where it's a big highlight shape. Okay, and so let's just try a few of those. One thing that you can do is we can say, I'm just going to draw some lines. We'll go like this. Okay, and we'll make these lines be like that without a fill. Okay, line width tool. We'll have them taper to a point, expand a little bit in the middle, taper to a point. Okay, and so we'll kind of just bring those in. And then you can just do something like, you can just say, I'm going to grab this with my black arrow tool, I'm just going to move it over. Boom, 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 right? You can kind of change these to be whatever color you want. So I'm going to pick up this pink color. And then I'm going to go to HSB, and I'm just going to make it a bright highlight. Okay. And so now if I take this, and I just put it right in here, okay, all of a sudden we get kind of the idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way to do it, okay? Yeah, and you could come in here and adjust these so that they're not so uniform. We'll zoom in a little bit. We'll take our line width tool and we'll come in and we'll just hold Alt and I'll just kind of make that kind of bulby. You can kind of pull some stuff out of these. You know, you can have a taper early. You can have a taper long. And that'll kind of just adjust the shape of what you're working with. Just go out like that. Bring this guy up here. Okay, so when you grab this thing, we'll just group it up. I'm gonna get rid of this highlight because we know where that's going to go now. We can kind of just put that in there like this. Okay, you can kind of expand it out if you want or whatever, but it gives you that. It gives you kind of like a chunk there. That'll give you kind of that highlight. That's one thing that you could do. Another thing is, you know, you could come in and you could add kind of a shape and you say, I want like, you know, I want the highlight to come across. We'll just start with like a rectangle. And we'll come up like this. And then you can start kind of curving it out. We'll have it kind of curve just a little bit. I'm not worrying about the edges because I'm going to mask those out so I can kind of come up and maybe come down a little bit. Okay, then I can take this. I can stick it in here. Okay, something like that. And then we can take this shape, copy, paste in front, bring it to the top, and use that to mask shapes like that.
Okay.
Right? And you'd have to fix the, yeah, take this and throw it to the outside or something like that. But I mean, this could become, you know, something like that. And you can still come in here and say, you know, I'm going to come in and I'm going to add some anchor points. So we'll get some little spikes. We'll go anchor point here, 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 here. And you can kind of pull some spikes out of it if you want. If you want to kind of still suggest kind of that hair feel. We can come in and we'll go boom, 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 boom. Kind of get that right. Now on this side, you could do something very similar to that, but then you pull over something. So we could just start with a line. Now if we take this, let's grab that, we'll lock that down. If we take this one, okay, and we do what we learned in class, we do draw inside, which is this not a closed off shape or something? Why can't we draw inside of it? I should be able to draw inside unless this isn't closed off. I don't know what's going on. How did I grab that? What did I grab? I don't want that. Go back. Let's undo everything. This one, you get locked in. This one is the one I want. There we go. Draw inside. There we go. Okay, draw inside. Okay, so now we can come in and we can say pen tool, and we'll kind of hit that part, and then we can come over and we can say, you know, give me something that like curves in a little bit like this. You know, we might come back and adjust these later. Okay, we'll get rid of our stroke. And you can start kind of pulling parts out like this and like this. Maybe drag this over. This, pull this up. Delete anchor points you don't like. So that gives you kind of like a little shadow.
Okay.
All right, but you see how you're just kind of defining that?
Mm-hmm. So it goes out.
Yeah. And so there's a number of ways that you can do this. I mean, we could create, we could create a little row of these like this. I'll just kind of curve that out and pull this like this way. Like this. Pull this way. Have it taper off over here. Okay, and these could be like that. And you can grab this whole thing and just go like that. And you can take this and group it and put it over here. Okay, I put that underneath this one, that type of thing. But you can kind of just start to kind of build that up. So that's more of kind of the iconic way, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could also do like these big shapes. Okay.
Okay.
And so let's just delete what we've done so far. So we'll get this and go away. This and go away. And then this one, at least the clipping mask. Get rid of that. All right. So now we can come in and we can grab this and go draw inside, Shift D twice. Okay, and I'm going to kind of do this, right? And so we'll start with something. Now you could use your pen tool, you could use your shape builder tool, you could use anything you want. I'm just going to use a pencil tool just for simplicity's sake, but I'm just going to say that I want a big chunk of this to be a highlight. Okay, and then I'm going to leave this part so it's a shadow. So I'm going to come in, I'm just going to kind of give us kind of a big sweeping chunk that's going to be kind of highlighted like so. Okay, and then I can grab this and we'll get our white arrow tool so we can select that one thing if we can find it. We should be able to select it. There we go. You notice there's a lot of anchor points, and so we can go in and we can clean those up. Object path simplify, preview. And I think it's not working because I selected it with my white arrow tool instead of my black arrow tool. So let's double click. I just want that. There we go. Okay. So now we go object path simplify. And we'll click preview. And it starts to do all kinds of weird stuff. So we'll adjust these sliders and see if it's going to help. It doesn't look like it is. Maybe a little bit. Click OK. And then we can kind of come over here like this, and let's get rid of our stroke. Let's adjust this to be a highlight color. So we'll come over to HSB again, brighten that up so it's more of a highlight. Okay, and then you can just come in and say, okay, let's play with this. Boy, this is being really frustrating. You can just grab the little handlebars of each one. If you don't like what the handlebars are doing, you can break them with your anchor point tool. Okay, so that's going to kind of give you kind of that highlight as a big chunk idea, right?
Okay. Oh,
Okay, and that's, you wouldn't have to do much more than that. You could come in on the other side and do some shadow or whatever, but just that is a nice little shape, and you'd want it to kind of flow together. And so there we go. That's the one I want. Why that is. I don't know why this is struggling with so much fighting me. I understand what's going on. I think I might be. There we go. Okay, there's one on top that it wasn't working with me. Go like this and bring this over. Bring the other one over. Kind of bend this one. And so the whole time you're just kind of deciding, you know, what you want to massage to make it work the way that you want it to. Just kind of wanted that to kind of curve out that way, that type of thing. So that would be, you know, something. Now on the other ones, if you're looking at something like this, okay, break this down. Initially, it just seems like there's a lot going on.
Right.
He's very busy. But if you were to break this down, we'd say that we've got large chunks of hair. Okay, and so if you separate those and see how they're acting, you can kind of come in and you can start to see. Let's just look at just this piece, right? And so we'll come in and we'll say, okay, so I'm just going to look at this piece and just see how this piece works. So it goes like this. All right, so we have kind of a shape here. It comes over like that. All right. So if I were to just kind of analyze just that piece, then I see that I have just lock these because they're like bugging me. There we go. Okay, so then I see that I have a couple, like I've got 1, 2, 3 kind of highlight shapes, and I've got a mid-tone shape, and then underneath that is like a shadow. And so if we just take this and we just drop it down, we can just kind of drop it down into a dark shadow. Okay, and then we do some highlight shapes. We can come in and say this is going to kind of come out like this, and it'll curve around like that. Okay, and we'll give it kind of this highlight color. And you can use whatever tools you want to kind of make that come out. It'll kind of taper quickly to a point. Probably taper quickly than it is. Okay, so we've got one shape like that. We can grab this shape here like this and just adjust it. We'll add an anchor point here and subtract it there. Add one over here and subtract it there. Okay, and then we've got another one that's kind of coming sort of the same, so I'm just going to grab these. Am I in some sort of weird drawing mode? This doesn't seem to be. There we go. Grab these like this and just kind of flip around. Kind of come this way, straighten them out a little bit. Okay, so I'll take this one, just curve it a little bit like that. That's going to come in, and then I'm just going to add, subtract, and subtract. I might thicken that one up a little bit. And I'm going to shorten this down.
You're just taking away the
Just deleting anchor points. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and because I added line width points. Okay, so then we've got some highlights. Okay, and then underneath our highlights, we've got just some midtone values. A really easy way to find a midtone value is you take your highlight and you take your shadow color and you take both of those things together and you go object blend make. And
That's how you do
object
that.
blend options, and then do specified steps in terms of like 1 or 2 in preview. That'll give you a nice midtone value, and then you can take that in here and we can just say, let's give us one that, and these are going to go a little bit further, so we'll give us one that just kind of comes like this, and all the way down like that. Okay, and then I'm just going to hit my eyedropper tool. I'm just going to hold shift and I'm just going to push that color there like that. I'll pull this out. Okay, and then I want to drop that behind. I want the highlights to be in front of this midtone value. Maybe I shrink that down a little bit. Shrink it down a lot. Okay, maybe there's another one. Like this, but we bend it a little bit more. So they're all going to kind of come from the same origin point. Pull this out to the edge. This is going to come down like this. Curve that out like that. Y, so I can grab this one too. So Command Y is just your outline view. You just bring that stuff to the top. And so if you were to take this and then you just add a few strands of hair, then you'd have this kind of area,
Okay.
right? And so you can kind of just build that out. This is a lot more difficult and it can get a lot more complicated,
Okay.
you know. But it's not necessarily bad. But I mean, if I were to come in here like this, I'll show you that blend again. If I were to come in here like this and do this blend, I can blend lines too. So I can blend a line like this. And then I'll come up here. I'll bend this line a little bit. So I'm going to add an anchor point here. Bend this around like this. I'll show you a little trick that you can do. Just pull this out. Like this. Okay, so now we have these two lines, and I'm just going to pull them to the side so you can see what's going on. Okay, and I'm just going to go to, again, Object, Blend, Make. It gives us one line in between, because the last thing we did was one line. So we'll go Object, where did we go? Object, Blend, Blend Options. And go preview, and I'll go specified steps, so I can just step this up. Boom, 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 boom,
Oh, cool.
right? And so then I can say, okay, you know, and if you want to, you can come in here, and sometimes this will work, sometimes it won't. And you can like pull out the line width of different things. You can taper things off.
How did you do that?
This is just the line width tool.
Okay.
So if I were to take this and just decrease the value or whatever, I can make it brighter, I can make it darker, I can make it more or less saturated. I can go like this, and I can come in, put this over the top here. And then you can do something like a transparency. Or you can do something like multiply, turn the transparency up like that. Or you could go like this and you could go screen, turn the transparency way down. And that'll just add like some hair suggestions. You're just like suggesting that there's hair there. Because really they haven't drawn individual strands. The genius of this particular illustration is that they painted in a handful of flyaways every once in a while.
Right.
Right, and so if you want to do kind of a similar thing, you could just come in and just say, you know, give me a little brush like this, and you just take that down to.
And that's the smallest you can go, right? With the.
No, you can go smaller if you'd like. You can get quite small, you know, something like that. And so you can come in and just have just a few of these. If you double click in your pencil, you go from accurate to smooth, it'll give you fewer anchor points. And you can come in and you can just say, give me one that like crosses over here like this, and then one that comes in like that. Okay, and a couple things like that. And then, you know, a few of these, and you're already pretty close to, you know, what you might want to do with blending. Now you need to be careful that you don't add too much detail in something that's going to be super small, and so you'll need to kind of decide, you know, how you're going to pull that back or whatever. But, I mean, you can even do something like this and use that blend trick again, and then go to Object Expand. Okay, and then each of those will be a different line, and you can come in and you can, you know, ungroup them. You can come in and delete a few of them. And come in and bend some of them. And have them end in different places. Okay, and I feel like we've done too much. It's too busy at this point. But you can kind of get the idea of like how you can come in and, you know, change things up and add some stuff. But really, what you're doing is you're just kind of painting in some suggestions of hair, basically. So somewhere in between where we are now, which is too far, and like a giant chunk of highlight is kind of where you want to end up.
Okay.
And
Between the two.
yeah, and what you decide to do with that is totally up to you. You know, but you'll want to be consistent. You'll want to be consistent with how you apply that.
Like the different layers.
You're welcome to hang out and
Much.
work if you want.
I have another
If you
class
gotta
at
go, that's fine.
3:15. Yeah.
You can come back another time. That's fine too.
I will.
That is also okay. Did I lock it? Okay, I locked it. So grab this one. And then we'll shift D again so that, what are we doing? What's going on? Yeah, that's the one we want. Okay, so once you do a draw inside, to do it again, you've got to double click and go into isolation mode.
Okay.
But now that we're in isolation mode, we're inside that clip group. And so now I can come in and I can say, double click my pencils. I want as few anchor points as possible, and I'll average stuff out. So I'll go smooth. Okay. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to say, give me kind of this idea. I should have zoomed in like a lot. But I'm going to do some of that action, and then we'll jump in. We'll take this, and we will zoom in. And let's just grab this. Okay, and then you can just come in and say, I like this, but I want it to be right there.
So like right there where it's really close to line, would that be considered a tangent then? Like
Where?
if we kept it? Like where the shadow kind of goes like up towards the top. Yeah, right there.
Right there.
I guess
Yeah,
it's not
that's-
super close,
That's why I
right?
moved it over, because right here, that does cause some problems. But
Okay.
if I just delete this, and if we're not having it highlighted,
Mhm.
that's not too close.
That's okay
I mean, if you
then.
wanted to, you could help it kind of flow downward a little bit by just pointing it in a different direction, so we can kind of just point it down. Because we're doing hair, I always want my points to kind of lead me into the suggestion of like where the hair would flow. So I'm gonna kind of taper a lot of these off. This doesn't go where I want it to go. I want it to go up and point towards this part here. So I can kind of pull it out a little bit, so it's a little bit more like this curve. This is a little bit too strong, so I can kind of pull some of that out. Maybe lift this up.
Okay.
Pull this into a curve. Do the same here. I'm just going to delete. We'll just pull this out. Like that. Right, and then if you want to, you can come in and you can kind of mix some of these things, and we can say, give me like a little curve here like that, and I'll shift W for line width, and I'll get it to kind of like get a little bit thicker, get a little bit thinner, taper off. So you can just do like one or two of those. I'm just going to zoom in.
Would it look weird? And probably yes. Sorry. To do some of those on the other side, or would I want to use the highlight color? On the other side?
Oh, you
If I
totally,
added
yeah,
something
you
like
could
that.
totally do something like this. Yeah, because I mean, the thing with hair is it faces all kinds of different directions, and so you're going to get shadows, midtones, and highlights like everywhere.
So even if I kept it that color on the other side, it'd be
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I mean, you can mix it. I mean, just know that as you do that, you're going to be adding a lot of value contrast, and so it'll draw your attention more there, which isn't bad. It's
Okay.
just that's a decision that you'll make
Gotcha.
as you do that. But yeah, you could mix in a couple darker values over here and a couple lighter values over here.